Hey guys, tonight we're rewinding the tape, literally, all the way back to that strange and static-filled decade known as the 1990s. Not the polished version from the movies, with the perfect soundtrack and the freeze-frame endings. I mean the real thing. A world of dial-up screeches, frosted tips and jeans, so wide you could smuggle a small dog down each leg. Tonight you're a teenager again, stranded in a time before smartphones, before Wi-Fi, before you could win any argument in 4 seconds with a rectangle in your pocket. It was a simpler time, which is just a polite way of saying nothing worked and everything took forever. Before we begin, a heartfelt thank you to William, who suggested tonight's trip down memory lane. The topics you send in are the whole reason this channel keeps growing, and I read every single one. If you enjoy where we're headed tonight, feel free to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Somehow it's always 2 in the morning somewhere. The channel is now on Spotify as well, so if you'd rather drift off with just your ears, the link is waiting for you in the description. Now, dim the lights, switch on a fan for that soft wall of white noise, and get comfortable. Let's pause for a second. Have you ever wondered how anyone made plans without a cell phone? How you were supposed to survive being grounded when the only phone was bolted to the kitchen wall? Could you rewind a rented movie fast enough to dodge the fee? Would you last a single afternoon waiting for one blurry photo to load over a modem that sounded like a robot in distress? And could you really navigate the brutal social politics of a school hallway armed with nothing but a folded note and a good haircut? Well, you're about to find out. Because congratulations, you've just woken up in 1994. Your alarm is a clock radio, your jeans are enormous, and somewhere in the kitchen a phone is ringing that you're absolutely not allowed to answer. Good luck. Let's start where every day starts, waking up. You crack open your eyes to a ceiling covered in glow-in-the-dark stars that stopped glowing sometime last spring, and a poster of a band you'll be quietly embarrassed about in exactly 10 years. Your alarm clock is a radio, and it's currently blasting a commercial for a local car dealership at a volume clearly designed to punish you personally. The walls are a shrine to your entire personality. Magazine cutouts, a lava lamp, and a small plush toy you are genuinely convinced will one day pay for college. There's no phone glowing on your nightstand, because your phone is in the kitchen, bolted to the wall, where the whole family agrees it belongs. Welcome to morning 90s style. You slap at the clock radio until it stops, which requires hitting roughly the entire top of the device, because the snooze button is a mystery even the manufacturer seems unsure about. The room is dim, lit by a strip of grey light through mini blinds that have been bent at the exact viewing height of a nosy sibling. Somewhere in the tangle of your blankets is the remote control, though it barely matters, because your television gets 4 channels clearly, and a 5th one that comes in only if someone stands near the antenna holding a coat hanger at the correct sacred angle. Your bedroom is a museum of stuff. There's a shoebox of trading cards under the bed, a stack of magazines you've read so many times the covers are soft as cloth, and a boombox on the dresser holding a tape you fell asleep to, now spun all the way to the end and quietly clicking. The carpet is a shade of beige that has seen things. Your closet door won't fully close because it's fighting a losing war against everything you own. And taped to the wall is a schedule of your favourite shows, handwritten. Because if you forget when something airs, it simply airs without you, and it is gone. You lie there for a moment doing the math every teenager does. How many more minutes can you steal before the situation becomes a genuine crisis? It's a delicate calculation, like defusing a bomb, except the bomb is your mother's voice travelling up the stairs. There's no gentle glowing screen easing you into the day, no soft chime, no app tracking your sleep and offering encouragement. There's just you, the ceiling, and the growing certainty that you've overslept. And then it comes, the voice from downstairs, informing you of the time in a tone that suggests it will not be repeating itself. This is your real alarm. The clock radio was merely a warning shot. You throw off the blankets and are immediately reminded that your house has exactly one temperature in the morning, and that temperature is unpleasant. Your feet hit the cold floor. Your knees protest, which is ridiculous because you are 15. You stand up, blink at the poster on your wall, and briefly wonder if this is all there is. Getting out of bed is the easy part. The truly heroic struggle, the real test of a 90s teenager's endurance, is still ahead of you, and it takes place behind a locked door at the end of the hall, in the single most contested square footage in the entire house. So take a breath, gather your courage, and prepare yourself. It's time to go to war over the bathroom. It's time to get ready, which in a house with one bathroom and several siblings is less a routine and more a hostage negotiation. You pound on the door. Someone inside pretends not to hear you over a hairdryer that pulls more power than the rest of the block combined. When you finally get in, the mirror is fogged. The counter is a graveyard of geal, mousse, and a suspicious amount of lemon-scented hair lightener, and there's exactly one towel that everyone has agreed to share and no one has agreed to wash. You have roughly 4 minutes to transform yourself into someone effortlessly cool. Effortless, it turns out, is going to take an enormous amount of effort. The bathroom itself is a hazardous environment. The floor is slick, the air is a thick fog of someone else's body spray, and the medicine cabinet is packed so tightly that opening it is a genuine avalanche risk. You wipe a porthole in the fogged mirror with your forearm and get to work. There is a lot of work. This is the era of hair as architecture, and your hair has ambitions that your hair does not have the structural support to achieve. You reach for the products. There's the gel that promises a wet look and delivers a helmet, the mousse that foams up like something from a science experiment, and the aerosol hairspray that seals the whole creation in place and quietly damages the atmosphere in the process. If you have bangs, and everyone has bangs, you're about to spend a truly unreasonable amount of time coaxing them into a shape that defies both gravity and good sense. It's like trying to sculpt with a substance that fights back. You spray, you tease, you spray again, and the room fills with a mist you're pretty sure you're not supposed to breathe. Meanwhile, the pounding has started on your side of the door. Now you're the villain. Someone else needs in, and they are informing the entire household of this fact. You shout back that you'll be 1 minute, a lie so common in this house it has lost all meaning. Everyone knows 1 minute is at least 10. It's the standard unit of bathroom time, roughly the way a dog year works. There's no soft glow of good lighting here, no forgiving filter, no second camera. There's just a bare bulb over the mirror, harsh and honest, illuminating every flaw with the enthusiasm of a prosecutor. You examine your face with the intensity of a detective. Is that a blemish? It is. Of course it is. You have somewhere important to be, so naturally your skin has chosen this exact morning to betray you. You dab at it with a toothpaste-based remedy your friend swears by, which does nothing except make the situation shinier. You brush your teeth in a hurry, you splash water on your face, and you take one last look at your creation. The hair holds, the outfit awaits. You are against all odds presentable. You unlock the door and are nearly trampled by the sibling who's been waiting, a look on their face that promises revenge tomorrow morning. But you have survived the bathroom, which in this household is no small achievement. You've emerged with your hair intact, your dignity mostly intact, and your schedule in absolute ruins. Now comes the next great decision of the morning, the one that will determine your entire social standing for the day. Because you can't go to school in a towel. It's time to figure out what on earth you're going to wear. Let's talk about what you're going to wear, because in the 90s, fashion isn't a choice. It's a statement, a mood, and occasionally a safety hazard. Your closet is a riot of flannel shirts tied around waists, jeans so baggy you could parachute out of a plane in them, and a windbreaker that makes a sound like a snack bag every time you move. Maybe you're grunge, maybe you're preppy, maybe you own a single hemp necklace and think that counts as a personality. Whatever tribe you belong to, the rules are strict and the stakes are high. Wear the wrong thing to school and you'll hear about it for a week, possibly a decade. You stand in front of your open closet and survey your options the way a general surveys a battlefield. This is not a casual decision. What you wear today will be seen, judged, and remembered by roughly 400 of your peers, all of whom are experts and none of whom are kind. The pressure is immense, and you have about 90 seconds because you spent all your extra time sculpting your hair into a shape it did not want to hold. The denim is the foundation of everything. Your jeans are enormous, the legs wide enough to hide a second smaller teenager, and they drag on the ground until the hems fray into a sad little fringe that collects the entire floor of your school. This is not a flaw, this is the look. Tighter jeans exist, but wearing them is a bold statement you're not prepared to make on a Tuesday. Over that goes a t-shirt for a band, a soda or a cartoon, and over that the flannel, worn open or tied around your waist as a kind of fabric announcement that you're relaxed and effortless and definitely not trying. Then come the shoes, and the shoes matter more than anything else you own. A specific pair of sneakers can elevate your entire existence, and the wrong pair can end you. The problem is that the right pair cost roughly the same as a used car, and your parents have made their position on this extremely clear. So you either save for months, or you get the store brand version that looks close enough from a distance and fools absolutely no one up close. Everyone knows. Everyone always knows. Accessories are where you express your soul. A slap bracelet if the school hasn't banned them yet. A friendship bracelet knotted by someone who may or may not still be your friend. A mood ring that claims to read your emotions and mostly just reads the temperature of your hand. A choker, a puka shell necklace. A single dangling earring worn with great conviction. Each piece is a tiny flag you plant, declaring which corner of teenage culture you've pledged yourself to this month. And here's the cruelest part. There's no mirror app to check yourself, no front-facing camera to confirm you look the way you think you look. There's just the mirror on your closet door and your own shaky confidence. You do a final turn, you adjust the flannel one more time, and you decide that this is as good as it gets. It has to be. The bus does not wait. You grab your backpack, sling it over one shoulder because two shoulders remains a crime against style, and head for the stairs. You are dressed, you are armoured, you are ready to be judged by hundreds of people. But first, before you can face any of them, your body demands fuel, and downstairs a bowl of something radioactive and delicious is waiting for you. Now it's time to eat. And breakfast in the 90s is brought to you by a cartoon mascot whose entire job is to get you addicted before the age of 12. You pour a bowl of cereal so brightly coloured it turns the milk a shade not found anywhere in nature, and then you drink that milk afterward like a reward. There might be a toaster pastry involved, or a chewy bar pretending to be healthy while packing the sugar of 9 actual candy bars. On the counter sits a jug of something called a drink, legally forbidden from calling itself juice. You'll wash it all down and be vibrating off the walls by second period. Balanced nutrition is a problem for future generations to solve. The cereal aisle at the store is a battlefield, and you have won it, mostly through relentless negotiation and the strategic placement of your preferred box in the shopping cart when your parents weren't looking. The box itself is a work of art, covered in a maze on the back, a cartoon character grinning at you, and a promise of a prize buried somewhere inside. You have, on more than one occasion, dumped the entire bag into a mixing bowl just to excavate that prize immediately, a small plastic toy that will break within the hour and be lost within the day. The cereal is engineered in a laboratory to be as delicious and as structurally useless as possible. It comes in shapes, in colours, coated in a sweetness that dissolves into the milk and transforms it into a beverage of its own, which you slurp directly from the bowl once the cereal is gone. This is not optional. Leaving the coloured milk behind would be a waste, and your body knows it needs every gram of this sugar to survive first period. If cereal isn't your battle plan, there are the toaster pastries, frosted rectangles with a filling roughly the temperature of the sun the instant they pop up, so you juggle them from hand to hand while they cool and burn the roof of your mouth anyway. Or there's the breakfast bar wrapped in foil, marketed to your parents as a wholesome start to the day, packed with enough sugar to power a small city. There might be a microwave sausage biscuit that comes out simultaneously frozen in the middle and volcanic on the edges. There is no version of this meal that a doctor would sign off on, and that is precisely its charm. You wash it all down with a drink, which arrives in a jug the colour of a highlighter and lists among its ingredients almost no fruit whatsoever. It is aggressively sweet, faintly chemical, and completely beloved. On a special morning, there might be a carbonated citrus soda so intense it practically comes with a warning label, marketed directly at teenagers who want to feel their heartbeat in their ears. By the time you've finished, your body is a barely contained reactor of processed sugar, ready to peak somewhere around 10 in the morning and crash catastrophically right before lunch. But that's a problem for later. Right now you feel unstoppable, which is exactly how the cartoon mascot wants you to feel. You rinse your bowl, sort of, leaving it in the sink for someone else to deal with, grab your backpack and head for the door. The sugar is in the bloodstream, the hair is holding, the outfit is deployed. There's just one more trial standing between you and the school day, and it's currently rumbling to a stop at the corner in a cloud of diesel smoke. Breakfast eaten, backpack slung over one shoulder. Because 2 shoulders is deeply uncool, you head out to face your ride to school, the bus. It arrives in a cloud of diesel and screeching brakes, a long yellow tube of pure social hierarchy on wheels. The back seats belong to the older kids, an unspoken law enforced with the seriousness of ancient property rights. You find a spot somewhere in the safe middle, beside a window that only opens halfway, and settle in for a ride scored by someone's boombox and the driver yelling at everyone to sit down. If you're lucky, you catch a ride instead with a friend's older sibling, in a car held together by bumper stickers and hope. The bus is a world with its own laws, and those laws were written long before you arrived and will outlast you. The seating chart is invisible but absolute. The front is for the young, the nervous, and the kids the driver is keeping an eye on. The middle is neutral territory where you belong, and the back is a kingdom ruled by the oldest and loudest, where you do not go unless invited, and you are not invited. To sit too far back before you've earned it is to invite a level of scrutiny you're simply not equipped to survive. The seats themselves are a hard green vinyl, cracked in places and patched with tape, and they get sticky in the heat and rock hard in the cold. The whole vehicle smells like diesel, old lunches, and the specific plastic scent of a heater that has been running too hot for too long. When the bus hits a bump, and it hits every bump, the back rows launch briefly into the air and experience the older kids treat as a thrill ride and everyone else treats as a spinal concern. The soundtrack is provided by whoever brought the loudest boombox, held on a shoulder or wedged into a backpack, playing a tape everyone either loves or is forced to love for the duration of the ride. There's shouting, there's laughing, there's a rumour being passed seat to seat that will be completely different by the time it reaches the front. Somebody is finishing homework they should have done last night. Somebody is trading snacks. Somebody near the back is doing something the driver will notice in the giant mirror in exactly 4 seconds, at which point the bus will fill with the sound of the driver yelling a name and a warning, and everyone will settle down for approximately 90 seconds before it all starts again. If you're one of the lucky ones, you skip the bus entirely by catching a ride with a friend who has an older sibling with a license and a car. This is a massive upgrade in status, even if the car is a rusting hand-me-down with a tape deck, one working door handle, and a check engine light that has been on so long it's basically decorative. You cram in with too many people, no one wearing a seatbelt because it's the 90s, and nobody's thinking about that yet. Music blasting, windows down, feeling like absolute royalty as you roll past the kids still waiting at the bus stop. Either way, the ride ends the same place, the front of the school, where a river of teenagers is flowing toward the doors, and the whole social ecosystem you left yesterday afternoon is waiting to pick right back up. The bus doors fold open with a hiss. You step down into the crowd, take a breath, and walk in. Because whatever happens next, it's happening inside a cinder block building full of fluorescent lights, and the first stop of the day is the place where you'll spend most of it, the classroom. You've arrived, and now you step into the natural habitat of the teenage animal, the classroom. The walls are cinder block painted the exact colour of boredom. The clock above the door is deliberately 3 minutes slow to crush your soul, and an overhead projector hums while your teacher writes on a plastic sheet with a squeaky marker. There's a chalkboard, an actual chalkboard, and being chosen to clap the erasers clean outside is either a punishment or a great honour depending on the day. Somewhere a film strip is threatening to happen. You sharpen a pencil in a grinder bolted to the wall, loud enough to interrupt the entire lesson, which is of course precisely the point. Your desk is a small individual island, a chair fused to a writing surface, carved with years of graffiti from students long gone. Names, initials, a heart, someone's declaration of undying love for a person who has surely long since moved away. The surface is slightly too small for anything you actually need to put on it, so your textbook, your notebook, and your elbow are engaged in a constant territorial dispute. The chair is designed for a body that does not exist, and you will spend the hour slowly sliding out of it. The room is a temple of low technology, doing its noisy best. The overhead projector throws a wobbling rectangle of light onto a pull-down screen, the teacher's handwriting shining through in blue marker, and every time they place a new transparency sheet down, there's a squeak and a shuffle. The fan inside it roars like a small aircraft. Near the window sits the television on a tall rolling cart, wheeled in from room to room like visiting royalty, and the mere sight of it being pushed through the door sends a ripple of hope through the class, because a television means a video, and a video means you don't have to think for 40 minutes. The chalkboard is the front line. The teacher writes, The chalk occasionally shrieks in a way that makes the entire class wince as one organism, and a fine dust settles over everything near the front. If you're the kind of student teachers trust, you might be handed the erasers and sent outside to clap them together in great satisfying clouds of chalk, a job that is somehow both a chore and a privilege, and always a good excuse to be out of the room for a few glorious minutes. Communication technology in this room consists entirely of your voice, a raised hand, and a hall pass the size of a small canoe, deliberately oversized so you can't lose it, and can't pretend you have it when you don't. There's an intercom on the wall that crackles to life a few times a day, the front office interrupting the lesson with announcements, and every so often it summons a specific student to come down, which sends the whole room into a chorus of theatrical oohs. You take notes by hand, in a spiral notebook whose metal coil is slowly unwinding into a weapon, the torn paper edges shedding little confetti bits into the bottom of your backpack. If you make a mistake, you erase it, or you scribble it out, or you tear out the whole page in frustration and start again. There's no undo, there's no autocorrect, there's just you, a pencil, and the slow grinding progress of learning something you're not entirely convinced you'll ever use. And when the material gets truly unbearable, when the clock has somehow moved backward and the lesson has lost all meaning, you do what teenagers have always done to survive. You find a way to talk to your friends. There's just one problem. Your best friend is sitting 3 rows away and the teacher is watching, which means it's time to practice one of the most sophisticated secret arts of your entire generation. Let's talk about communication, because you desperately need to tell your friend 3 rows over something that absolutely cannot wait until the bell. There's no texting, no group chat, no discreet phone hidden under the desk. There is only paper, folded into a shape so intricate it should require an engineering degree, passed hand to hand across the room in a fragile chain of trust and betrayal. Every note is a gamble. Intercept it, and a teacher might read it aloud to the whole class, ending your social life on the spot. So you fold, you pass, you pray, and you master a covert delivery system that would honestly impress a real spy agency. First comes the writing, done in your lap or behind a strategically propped up textbook, your pen moving in careful bursts whenever the teacher turns to the board. The content is critically important, which is to say it's almost entirely nonsense. Who likes whom, what happened at lunch, a drawing of your teacher with an unflattering caption, a single burning question that demands an immediate answer. You write it, you read it back, you decide it's perfect, and then you face the true challenge, which is the folding. The fold is everything. A note passed as a loose crumpled ball is amateur hour, prone to falling open and spilling your secrets to the world. A properly folded note is a sealed vault. There are techniques passed down through the grades, folds with tucks and flaps that lock shut, some so elaborate they include a little pull tab so the recipient knows exactly where to open it, and the whole thing snaps satisfyingly apart in their hands. Getting a beautifully folded note is a small gift on its own, before you've even read a word. Then comes the journey, the most dangerous phase of the entire operation. The note must travel from your hand to a hand 3 rows away, and it must do so without being seen by the one adult in the room whose entire job is seeing things. You wait for the moment, the teacher's back turned, the lesson droning, and you make the handoff to the student beside you with a whisper and a look that says everything. Get this to its destination and tell no one. The note moves seat to seat, a chain of couriers each risking themselves for a message that isn't even theirs. This is loyalty. This is friendship. This is the closest thing your generation has to a group chat, and it moves at roughly the speed of a very cautious snail. And then there's the risk. the ever-present nightmare that makes the whole thing thrilling. A hand slips, a note is fumbled. It hits the floor with a sound that, in your panic, seems to echo off every wall. Or worse, the teacher sees the whole thing, walks over with the terrible calm of someone who has caught 1,000 notes before yours and picks it up. And now comes the ultimate horror, the possibility that they will read it aloud, in front of everyone. Your carefully worded thoughts, your crush's name, your unflattering drawing, delivered in a flat, teacherly voice to a room full of your peers, who will not let you forget it for the rest of the school year, and possibly the rest of your life. So you take the risk because you have to, because there is no other way, and because a message delivered successfully feels like pulling off a heist. You watch across the room as your friend receives the note, unfolds it, reads it, and looks up at you with a grin. Mission accomplished. You've beaten the system one more time. Of course, all this cleverness gets you exactly nowhere in the one class where there's no desk to hide behind, no note to fold, and no possible way to blend into the background. Because next on your schedule is the subject specifically engineered to expose you in front of everyone, and you can already smell the locker room from here. It's time for the one class designed by adults to build character through public suffering. Gym. You change in a locker room that smells like a wet dog wrapped in a wetter sock, into a uniform that fits no known human body. Then you're handed a red rubber ball and told the game is dodgeball, which is not so much a game as legally sanctioned revenge. There's the rope you're expected to climb for reasons no one can explain, the fitness test that ranks you against a national average, and the ever-present dread of being picked last. Somewhere a whistle blows. Your only goal here is survival, and, ideally, not becoming the story everyone tells at lunch. The locker room alone is a trial. Its tile and echoes and a smell you could describe as human, if you were being generous. You change as fast as humanly possible, performing the delicate maneuver of getting into your gym clothes while revealing as little of yourself as possible, an art form practiced by every self-conscious teenager who ever lived. The uniform is a shapeless shirt and shorts in your school colours, sized apparently at random, so you're either swimming in fabric or dangerously close to bursting a seam, with no in-between available. Then you file out into the gym itself, a vast echoing box with a shiny floor. Painted lines for 6 different sports, overlapping into confusion, and a set of bleachers folded against the wall. The teacher stands in the centre with a whistle and a clipboard, and the unbothered energy of someone who genuinely enjoys watching teenagers suffer. And the suffering is varied, because the gym curriculum is a rotating menu of ways to be humiliated in front of your peers. There's dodgeball, of course, the classic, where the strong hunt the weak with hard rubber balls and the whole thing is somehow allowed. There's the rope hanging from the ceiling that you're expected to climb using nothing but your arms and your dignity, both of which give out at about the same height, roughly 4 feet off the ground while everyone watches. There's the fitness test, a national ritual of pull-ups and sit-ups and a timed run, all measured and recorded and compared against a chart that makes very clear where you rank among the youth of the nation, and it is not high. But the true horror, the thing that predates all the games, is the picking of teams. 2 captains are named, always the athletic ones, and they take turns choosing players from the shrinking cluster of the unchosen. You stand there as the group thins, as name after name is called, as your fate becomes clearer with each pick, until you're among the final few, shifting your weight, staring at the floor, hoping to simply be selected before the merciful end. Being picked last is a small public death, delivered by your own classmates, sanctioned by the school, are never spoken of by the adults who designed the whole cruel system. You play, you run, you get hit, you get slightly sweaty in a way you now have to carry with you for the rest of the day, because a real shower is not happening. You change back into your regular clothes in the reeking locker room, your hair now defeated, your carefully assembled morning look thoroughly undone by 40 minutes of state-mandated athletics. And then, mercifully, it ends, and the timing could not be better, because all that running around has left you starving. The next bell sends the entire school pouring in one direction, toward a large room full of long tables and questionable food, where the real education of the day takes place. Not academic education, social education. Welcome to lunch. Lunch is served, and the cafeteria is where the true social order of the school reveals itself. Where you sit matters far more than anything you'll ever learn from a textbook. You navigate a maze of tables, tray in hand, praying for a friendly face, while the lunch staff ladle out something the menu calls a Salisbury steak and everyone else calls a mystery. If you're lucky, you brought your own lunch, a boxed kit you assemble like a tiny sad architect, a fruit snack shaped like a cartoon character, and a snack cake with a shelf life longer than most marriages. Trading is a serious economy in here. Never, under any circumstances, trade away the good stuff. The room itself is enormous and loud, a great echoing hall where hundreds of teenagers talk at once, and the sound bounces off the walls into a constant roar. The tables are long, foldable and sticky, and each one is claimed by a group with an unspoken but ironclad right to it. There's the table for the athletes, the table for the kids who are too cool to be seen trying, the table for the ones who play cards, the table for the ones who don't quite have a table. Sitting in the wrong place is a mistake you make exactly once. The food itself comes in two forms. There's the hot lunch, dispensed by the cafeteria staff onto a compartmentalised tray, a rectangular pizza that bears no resemblance to any pizza in nature. A scoop of something beige, a pile of corn, and a carton of milk that is always slightly warmer than it should be. And there's the packed lunch from home, which ranges from a sad squished sandwich in a reused bread bag to the crown jewel of 90s dining. The little plastic tray of stackable crackers, meat, and cheese that you build into miniature snacks with the focus of a surgeon. Pair it with a pouch of juice you stab with a tiny straw, a bag of chips, and a snack cake so processed it will outlive us all, and you have a meal worth defending. Because the cafeteria runs on an economy, and its currency is snacks. The trading floor is more active than any stock exchange. A prize snack cake can command a whole side of someone else's lunch. A rare or coveted item, a specific candy, a full-size chocolate bar moves through the room like contraband. Everyone knows the going rate. Everyone is looking for a deal. And every single day someone gets talked into trading away their best item for something clearly inferior, learning a hard lesson about value that no economics class could ever teach. Beyond the food, the cafeteria is where the day's real business happens. This is where you find out who is mad at whom, who broke up over the weekend, who is going to the dance and with whom. It's where rumours are born, live their brief lives, and die. It's where you laugh so hard at your table that milk becomes a genuine respiratory hazard. It's 25 minutes of pure social intensity crammed between classes, and it will occupy your thoughts far more than anything a teacher says all day. Then the bell rings, and the whole thing dissolves in an instant, everyone dumping trays, grabbing bags, and flooding back into the hallways. Lunch is over. The best part of the day is behind you. and there are still hours of school left ahead. But you push through them, watching the clock, because the afternoon holds a promise, a reward waiting for you the second you get home. Not a nap, not a snack, something far more important. The single most vital object in your entire teenage life, and it is attached to the wall. School's over, and now comes the highlight of your entire day. The phone. Not a phone. The phone. It hangs on the kitchen wall with a curly cord you've stretched to its absolute limit, dragging it around the corner in a doomed quest for privacy your whole family can still clearly hear. You've been waiting all afternoon to call the one person you already spent 7 hours with at school. But there's a catch. Several catches, actually. Someone might be expecting a call. Someone might pick up the other extension mid-sentence. And every minute you talk is a minute nobody else in the house can, which turns a simple phone call into a full family conflict. The phone is the beating heart of the household, and it is located cruelly in the most public room in the house. There is no taking it to your bedroom, not really, unless your bedroom happens to be within the radius of that coiled cord, which stretches and stretches like taffy, until it's a thin, tight line that someone will inevitably trip over. You wedge yourself into the corner, or you sit on the kitchen floor with your back against the cabinets, or you stretch the cord around the door frame into the hall, seeking a privacy that does not exist in a house with thin walls and curious relatives. Making the call is a small ritual. You dial the number, which you know by heart, because you know all your friends' numbers by heart, a skill that will one day vanish entirely from the human race. You listen to it ring, and you brace yourself because you never know who's going to pick up. It might be your friend. It might terrifyingly be your friend's parent, which requires you to summon every ounce of your politeness and ask, in your most respectable voice, if your friend is available, while their parent decides whether you sound like trouble. And then, if you get through, comes the conversation, which can last hours, wrapped in that cord, discussing everything and nothing, replaying the entire school day you both just lived through together, but this golden time is under constant siege. At any moment, someone in your house might need the phone, and the phone is a shared resource with a single line, so your call is directly blocking anyone else from making or receiving one. Your parents want to keep the line free in case someone important calls. Your sibling has their own call to make and is standing over you with visible impatience. The pressure builds. Worse still is the extension. Somewhere else in the house is a second phone connected to the same line, and at any moment another member of your family can pick it up and be instantly, silently listening in, or not silently, announcing loudly that you've been on for an hour and it's time to hang up. There's a specific click and a change in the sound of the line when someone lifts an extension, and you learn to detect it like a sonar operator, snapping at whoever it is to hang up and stop listening. And if your family has embraced the height of technology, there's an answering machine on the counter, a little box with a tiny tape inside, its red light blinking to signal messages. You rewind it and listen to the recordings, hearing voices from earlier in the day, and you record an outgoing greeting for it that you and your siblings laboured over for an unreasonable amount of time to make sound cool. The phone is your lifeline, your social world, your one connection to everyone who isn't currently in the room with you. But there's another machine in the house that promises to connect you to the whole entire world if you can just get everyone to stay off the phone long enough. And connecting to it makes a sound you will never ever forget. Maybe your house has one of the machines from the future, a computer with something called the internet. Getting online is a full ritual. First you make sure absolutely no one needs the phone, because the internet runs on the phone line, and then you press a button, and listen to a sound like a robot being strangled while two fax machines have an argument. After roughly the length of a short film, you're connected. A cheerful voice announces you've got mail, and you feel like the most powerful person alive. Then someone picks up the kitchen phone to make a call, and you're instantly, brutally disconnected. The information superhighway had a great many potholes. The computer itself sits in a corner, a beige box the size of a small refrigerator attached to a monitor, deep enough to require its own table. It hums, it whirs, and it takes a genuinely alarming amount of time simply to turn on, walking you through a series of beeps and boot-up screens before it's ready to do anything at all. This is not a sleek device. This is a serious piece of furniture, and the whole family shares it, which means using it is a scheduled event, negotiated in advance like custody. Then comes the connection itself, which begins the moment you double-click the little icon and the modem springs to life. There's the dial tone, the rapid-fire tones of the number dialing, and then the sound. Oh, the sound. That shriek, that static hiss, that grinding electronic scream that every single person of your generation will recognise instantly for the rest of their lives. It's the sound of two machines finding each other across the phone lines, negotiating in a language of pure noise, and you sit through it every single time with the patience of a monk, because there is no skipping it, and you cannot make a phone call while it's happening. This is the central tragedy of the household internet. The computer and the telephone share one line, so being online means the phone is dead, and someone using the phone means the internet is dead. Pick up the receiver mid-connection, and you're greeted by that horrible screeching, and somewhere in the house a family member is now kicked offline and yelling your name. Entire households developed complex treaties around this single fact. Who gets the line, and when, and for how long? Once you're finally on, the internet is a strange, slow, wondrous place. Web pages load one agonizing piece at a time, images creeping down the screen line by line, so that you often know what a picture is before you can actually see it. You wait. You wait a lot. Downloading a single song could take the better part of an afternoon, and if the connection dropped at 98%, which it loved to do, you simply started over and made your peace with it. But the real magic is the mail and the messages. That cheerful little announcement that you've got new mail is a genuine thrill. You join chat rooms full of strangers. You craft a screen name that you think is unbelievably clever, and you talk to people across the country in real time, which feels like science fiction. You are, for a few connected minutes, part of something vast and new, right up until dinner is ready and you have to log off. Of course, the computer is a novelty, a slow window onto a distant world. The real electronic heart of your home, the device your entire afternoon actually orbits around, is the one in the living room, the one that plays music all day long and tells you exactly who you're supposed to be. Let's turn on the television, because there's a channel that plays music videos all day long, and it basically runs your entire life. You sit cross-legged inches from the screen, waiting for your favourite video, ready to leap up and change it the second a boring one comes on. This channel tells you what to wear, what to buy, and what to think is cool, all in between videos and a bizarre cartoon or two. You know every host by name. You hold fierce opinions about the daily countdown that you will defend to the death. And when a world premiere is scheduled, you clear your calendar completely, because there's no rewatching this later. You watch it live or you miss it forever. This is appointment television in its purest form, There's no way to summon a specific video on demand, no library to scroll through, no button that plays exactly what you want. There's only the channel playing what it plays when it plays it. And your job is to be there, watching, waiting for the one you love to come around again. So you leave it on for hours, doing homework in its glow, half listening, snapping to attention the moment those opening notes hit. The videos themselves are events. Some are strange little films with plots and characters. Some are just the band performing in a warehouse. Some are so bizarre and expensive looking they get talked about at school the next day like a shared national experience. A new video from a huge artist doesn't just drop quietly. It premieres, announced days in advance, hyped relentlessly, until the whole youth of the country is parked in front of their screens at the same moment to witness it together. You tape it if you can, finger poised on the record button of the VCR, trying to catch it clean without the commercials. The hosts are stars in their own right, cool older figures who introduce the videos, interview the bands, and seem to live inside a world of endless music that you desperately want to be part of. You know their names, their personalities, their catchphrases. There's the daily countdown of the most requested videos, and you have strong, unshakable opinions about which one deserves the top spot. Opinions you'll argue passionately with your friends as though the fate of the world hangs on the ranking. And it isn't just about the music. This channel is a fire hose of culture aimed directly at teenagers, and it decides what's cool with terrifying authority. The clothes in the videos become the clothes at your school. The slang becomes your slang. The bands become your entire personality. Somewhere between the music videos there are game shows, animated shows that are definitely not for little kids, and beach house programs that make you ache for a life you don't have. It's all designed to keep you watching, and it works, because you cannot look away. Your parents don't understand it, which is of course the entire point. They walk through the room, glance at the screen, ask what on earth you're watching, and shake their heads. That disapproval only makes it more essential. This channel is yours, a world that belongs to you and not to them, and you guard your right to it fiercely. But the channel plays around the clock, and you can't. Eventually you have to sleep, go to school, live your life. There's only one time when television truly belongs to you completely, uninterrupted, sacred, and it comes just once a week, early in the morning, before the rest of the house wakes up. It's the weekend, and for a teenager that means one holy institution: Saturday morning cartoons. You wake up early, earlier than you ever would for school, pour a bowl of cereal, and plant yourself in front of the TV for a few uninterrupted hours of animated glory. There are only a handful of channels, so the whole neighbourhood is essentially watching the same thing at the same time, which makes Monday's conversations easy. The commercials are as important as the shows, selling you toys and cereal in a relentless, bright, sugary loop. And when the cartoons finally end and sports coverage takes over, you know the magic window is slammed shut for another entire week. There's a beautiful irony here, and you feel it every Saturday. All week long, your parents drag you out of bed for school while you cling to the mattress and beg for 5 more minutes. But on Saturday, the one day you could sleep in as long as you like, you're awake at dawn on your own, drawn downstairs by an internal alarm clock set entirely by cartoons. Nobody has to wake you. You wake yourself because the schedule waits for no one, and missing the good stuff is not an option. You establish your position early, the good spot on the couch, or better yet right on the floor directly in front of the television, close enough to touch it, a bowl of cereal balanced in your lap. This is your command post for the next several hours. You are not to be disturbed. Chores can wait. The outside world can wait. This is the one stretch of time all week that is entirely, unquestionably yours. Because there are only a few channels the whole country's worth of kids is watching from the same small menu of options. This creates a strange and wonderful unity. Whatever aired Saturday morning is what everyone talks about, because everyone saw it, because there was nothing else to see. You can walk into school on Monday and reference a single moment from a single cartoon, and half your grade knows exactly what you mean. It's a shared culture, delivered on a fixed schedule, to a generation all sitting on their living room floors at the same time. And the commercials are part of the magic, not a break from it. Between the shows come the ads, loud and bright and aimed with laser precision at you, selling toys that look impossibly fun in the 30-second spot, cereals that promise adventure, and snacks in colours that don't occur in nature. You memorise the jingles. You add items to a mental list of things you will beg for. The advertisers know exactly what they're doing, and you are their willing sugar-fueled target. There's a specific melancholy to the end of it too. As the morning wears on, the cartoons start to give way to shows for slightly older audiences, and then, the final blow, the sports programming arrives. The moment the screen fills with grown men discussing a game, you know it's over. The magic window has closed. The best few hours of the week are behind you, and there's nothing to do but turn off the set and rejoin the ordinary world for another 7 days. But Saturday isn't only about what's on the air. Saturday is also the day of the great weekend expedition, the trip that turns a boring evening into an event. Because you don't just watch what television gives you. Sometimes you go out and choose your own movie, and that choice begins with a drive to a very particular glowing store. Tonight you want to watch a movie, which is a whole expedition. You pile into the car and drive to a glowing temple of shelves where you wander the aisles reading the backs of boxes for 20 solid minutes. The movie you actually came for is naturally all rented out, so you settle for a second choice and a bag of wildly overpriced candy. Back home, you feed the tape into the machine, and if the previous renter was a monster, you first have to sit and rewind the whole thing yourself. Forget to rewind before you return it, and you'll pay a fine, a small tax on your own laziness that quietly haunts the entire decade. The video store is a destination, an event, a place you go with your family or your friends on a weekend night the way earlier generations went to a soda fountain. It glows from the parking lot, rows of shelves visible through the big windows, and stepping inside means being greeted by a specific hush and the smell of plastic cases and microwave popcorn. The whole place is organised into sections, and you drift through them, running your fingers along the spines of the boxes, reading titles, flipping the cases over to study the photos and the descriptions on the back. The choosing is half the fun and all the agony. A movie you actually want to see is a moving target, because the store has only so many copies of each new release, and on a busy night the shelf where the popular one should be is empty, just a little display card mocking you. So the search becomes a negotiation. You settle. You take a chance on something with an interesting cover. You get talked into a title by whoever you came with, and half the time the movie you end up with is one you never would have picked, which occasionally turns out to be the best part. On the way to the register, you grab the snacks, boxes of candy, and bags of popcorn displayed right by the counter at prices that are frankly insulting, and you buy them anyway, because a rented movie without candy is just sad. You hand over your card, the clerk scans the tapes, and reminds you of the due date and always the sacred rule: be kind, rewind. Because the movie comes on a tape, a chunky black cassette, and a tape does not reset itself. If the last person who rented it left it at the end, you have to rewind it before you can watch, sitting there listening to the machine whir the whole thing backward, a little tax on someone else's rudeness. And when you're done, you owe the same courtesy to the next person, plus you owe the store the tape itself, back on time, or the fees start stacking up. There are few 90s experiences more universally dreaded than realising a rental is days overdue and doing the mental math on what you now owe. The machine that plays it all is the VCR, blinking 12 o'clock forever because no one in the house has ever successfully set the clock. You slide the tape in, it swallows it with a mechanical clunk, and the movie begins, preceded by previews you cannot skip, and warnings you cannot skip, and a logo you cannot skip. You settle in. This is the whole evening now, and you've committed to it fully. Renting a movie means you're stuck at home, planted on the couch. But the whole point of a lot of 90s music was that you could take it with you, anywhere, in your pocket. And that particular freedom came from a small plastic box and a very personal art form. Let's talk about music on the move, because you own a device that lets you carry songs with you, and it is a genuine miracle roughly the size of a sandwich. It clips to your waistband, devours batteries like candy, and skips every time you take a slightly aggressive step. Inside it lives the most precious object you own, a mixtape. Making one is an act of pure devotion. You sit by the radio for hours with a finger hovering over the record button, waiting for the DJ to stop talking and play the song, then cursing when he talks right over the intro anyway. Hand a mixtape to someone special, and you're basically confessing your entire heart in cassette form. The player itself is a marvel and a menace. It runs on a pair of batteries that die at the worst possible moment, right in the middle of your favourite song, the music slowing down and dropping in pitch into a ghostly warble before it gives out entirely, at which point you either have spares or you have silence. You clip it to your waistband and run the headphone wire up under your shirt. Headphones with the foam pads that flatten and crack over time, and it skips. Any real motion, a jog, a jump, a bump in the road, jolts the tape and interrupts the songs. You learn to move through the world with a certain careful smoothness, protecting the music. But the true magic isn't the machine, it's the tapes, and above all, the mixtape. A store-bought album is one thing, but a mixtape is personal, curated, made by hand, and making one is a serious undertaking. There are two ways to build it, and both require patience. If the songs come from other tapes or the radio, you're dubbing them one at a time, in real time, meaning a 60-minute tape takes at least 60 minutes to fill, plus all the fiddling in between. And if you're recording off the radio, which is how you catch the newer songs before you can buy them, you enter a special kind of dedication. You sit by the stereo for hours with a blank tape loaded and your finger resting on the record button, listening to the station, waiting for the song you want. The instant it starts, you hit record, praying the DJ doesn't talk over the opening, which he almost always does, ruining your recording with his cheerful voice, announcing the station right over the first few seconds. You wait for it to come around again. You try again. This is how you build a collection, one hunted down song at a time. Once you have the songs, the sequencing is an art. The order matters. The flow matters. You agonize over which song opens the tape and which one closes it, how one track leads into the next, whether the whole thing tells a story. And then there's the cover, the little paper insert that you letter by hand, listing the songs, decorating it, making it yours. A completed mixtape is a genuine creative work, hours of labour compressed into a small plastic rectangle, and a mixtape given as a gift is one of the most meaningful things a 90s teenager can offer. Handing someone a tape you made just for them, with songs you chose because they made you think of them, is a confession without words, a declaration far too vulnerable to say out loud. The songs say it for you. Of course, hunting songs off the radio and dubbing them one at a time is the poor teenager's path. Sometimes you just want to own the actual album, professionally made, with all the songs and the real artwork. And getting your hands on that means a trip to a very particular kind of store and a very tempting trap in the back of a magazine. When you actually want to own an album, you head to the record store, a dimly lit paradise of posters and listening stations. You flip through endless rows of discs and cassettes, silently judging strangers by their choices, and hand over what feels like a fortune for a single album with 2 songs you love and 10 you'll skip forever. Or maybe you fell for the ultimate scheme, the mail-order music club that promised you 12 albums for a single penny. It felt like the deal of the century, right up until the fine print quietly signed you up to buy a full-price album every month until roughly the end of time. Somewhere your parents are still getting the bills. The record store is a place of pilgrimage. The walls are covered in posters and cardboard displays for new releases. The ceiling sometimes hung with them too, and the air has that particular smell of shrink-wrapped plastic and printed cardboard. The music playing over the store speakers is always something you don't recognise but immediately want to, and the people who work there radiate an intimidating expertise, as though they have heard every album ever made and found most of them disappointing. You flip through the bins, and the flipping itself is a ritual, that steady rhythmic click of case after case tipping forward as you scan the alphabet for the artist you came for. You judge everyone around you by what's in their hands, and you know they're judging you right back. There might be listening stations where you can put on a pair of communal headphones and preview a few featured albums, which feels like an incredible luxury, sampling before you buy. But the buying stings. An album costs real money, a serious chunk of whatever you've saved or earned, and the cruel truth of the era is that you're often paying that full price for 1 or 2 songs you actually want, the hit you heard on the radio, surrounded by a whole album of tracks you may never listen to twice. There's no buying the single song, it's the whole album or nothing, and so you hand over your money and hope the rest of it turns out to be good. And then there's the trap, the scheme so famous it defined a generation of buyer's remorse. Tucked into the pages of magazines were the ads for the mail-order music clubs, and the offer was irresistible. Pick a dozen albums, get them all for a single penny. A penny. You taped the actual coin to the card, or you stuck the little stamps of your chosen albums onto the form, mailed it off, and a few weeks later a glorious box of music arrived. 12 albums, essentially free. It felt like getting away with something. Except you hadn't gotten away with anything. Buried in that tiny print was the commitment, the agreement to buy more albums, at regular club prices that were anything but a penny, plus shipping on a schedule. And every month a card would arrive announcing the featured selection, and if you didn't mail it back in time declining, they'd send it anyway and bill you for it. Whole families waged low-grade war against these clubs for years, sending back unwanted albums, trying to cancel memberships that did not want to be cancelled. Owning music, whether hunted off the radio, bought at the store, or scammed out of a magazine, is one of the great pursuits of your teenage life. But music is something you listen to. When you want something you can actually do. something with buttons and a screen and a chance to win, you turn to the great electronic obsession of the decade, and you pledge your loyalty to one side of a war being fought in living rooms across the country. It's time for video games, and you're a soldier in one of the greatest conflicts of the era, the console wars. You're either a loyal defender of one grey box or a passionate believer in the other, and you'll argue about it on the playground like the fate of nations depends on it. You blow into the cartridge when it won't work, a ritual with zero scientific basis that somehow always seems to fix it. You memorize secret codes like sacred scripture, and when a friend comes over you graciously hand them the second controller, the one that mysteriously isn't plugged into anything, so that you can win every single time. The console sits beneath the family television, wired into it through a tangle of cables that took an engineering degree and a lot of swearing to connect in the first place. Getting to play means claiming the family television, which means negotiating with everyone else who wants it, which means your gaming time is often squeezed into the windows when no one's watching their shows. When you do get your turn, you sit close, controller in hand, cords stretched across the floor for anyone to trip on. The games come on cartridges, chunky plastic rectangles you slot into the machine, and cartridges are temperamental. When one refuses to work, when the screen flickers or freezes or shows a garbled mess, every kid in the country knows the fix. You pull it out, you blow into the bottom of it, that specific puff of breath across the contacts, and you slam it back in. There is no evidence this actually does anything except possibly make it worse over time, but it is gospel, an inherited ritual performed with total faith, and often the game does start working afterward, which only deepens the belief. The games themselves are hard, brutally so, and there's a reason for that. There's no saving your progress in many of them, no checkpoints, no second chances. You start at the beginning, and if you die, you start at the beginning again, and a single game can demand hours of unbroken concentration to finish in one sitting. This makes beating a game a genuine achievement, something you brag about, and it makes the secret codes that grant extra lives or hidden powers incredibly precious. These codes pass from kid to kid like sacred knowledge, scribbled on scraps of paper, memorized, traded, printed in the glossy pages of gaming magazines you read cover to cover. And there's the great advantage of playing on your home turf, the trick every host has pulled at least once. A friend comes over to play, and you hand them the second controller, and the whole time you're winning handily, and only much later do they realise the truth. The second controller was never actually plugged in or was broken, and they were mashing buttons that did nothing while you cruised to victory. It's a betrayal, a classic, and everyone has been on both sides of it. But the loyalty is the real heart of it. You have chosen your side, your particular grey box and its mascot, and you defend that choice with a passion that borders on the religious. The rival console is inferior, obviously, and its fans are misguided, obviously, and you will argue this point endlessly with the certainty only a teenager can bring to a topic that does not remotely matter. Friendships are tested. Playground debates rage. It's ridiculous and it's everything. Your home console is a kingdom you rule, but its games can only be so grand on a family television with a cartridge. For the truly spectacular games, the loud ones, the ones with graphics that make your jaw drop, you have to leave the house and travel to a dark and glorious cathedral of noise, armed with a pocket full of coins. Sometimes the games at home just aren't enough, and you make a pilgrimage to the arcade, a dark cave lit only by screens and lined with machines demanding tribute. Your pockets are heavy with quarters, and each one is a precious extra life. The room is deafening, explosions, tinny music, the clack of joysticks, and the occasional triumphant kid entering his initials onto a high scoreboard for all eternity. You stand behind the best player and watch, waiting your turn, laying your quarter on the edge of the machine to claim next. It's expensive, it's loud, and one great run on your favourite game can make you a neighbourhood legend, at least for as long as you keep feeding it money. The moment you walk in, the arcade assaults every sense at once. It's dim, deliberately so the screens glow brighter, and it's a wall of sound. Dozens of machines all shouting their own soundtracks and sound effects at full volume, layered over the constant background music and the clatter of buttons and joysticks being hammered by 100 hands. The carpet is a wild neon pattern designed to hide stains and disorient you, and the whole space hums with a specific electric energy you don't get anywhere else. The machines tower over you, big cabinets with vivid painted artwork down the sides, each one a self-contained world. These are the games too big and too powerful to exist at home, with graphics and sound that leave your living room console in the dust, and the newest, flashiest cabinet always draws a crowd. Some you play standing at a joystick and a bank of buttons. Some you sit inside, gripping a plastic steering wheel or a light gun, the seat rumbling beneath you. But the arcade runs on a merciless economy, and the currency is quarters. Every game costs, and the good ones seem designed to take your money as fast as possible, throwing challenges at you that drain your lives quickly and flash that tempting invitation to continue. Just insert another coin. Don't let it end now. You feel the weight of the quarters in your pocket at the start of the night, a small fortune of possibility, and you feel them run out with alarming speed, each one a life spent until you're down to your last and you make it count. There's an etiquette to the place, unwritten but universal. When a machine is occupied and you want your turn, you set your quarter down on the edge of the cabinet, and that quarter is a claim, a marker in line respected by everyone. You stand behind the current player and watch, learning their moves, waiting for them to lose, ready to step up. And when someone truly skilled is playing, a crowd gathers, watching in genuine awe as they push deeper into a game than anyone thought possible. The ultimate glory is the high score. Post a score high enough, and the machine invites you to enter your initials, 3 letters that will sit at the top of that leaderboard for everyone who plays after you to see, until someone finally beats it. Those 3 letters are a kind of immortality, your mark left on the machine, proof that you were here and you were the best, at least for a while. Kids would pour a fortune in quarters into a single game chasing that top spot. The arcade takes your money and gives you glory, but eventually the quarters run out and you're back on the sidewalk blinking in the daylight. Fortunately, the arcade is almost always nestled inside a much larger kingdom, a vast climate-controlled world where teenagers roam free, and that world is the true centre of your entire social universe. Let's go to the single most important place in a 90s teenager's universe, the mall. It isn't just a place to shop, it's where you exist. You don't necessarily buy anything at all. You walk. You loop the same route past the same stores for hours, seeing and being seen, occasionally splitting a giant soft pretzel or a smoothie the size of your own head. There's the fountain everyone tosses pennies into, the clothing store that's somehow always too dark and too loud, and the food court that serves as parliament, courtroom and dating scene all at once. Your parents drop you off and collect you later, and in between, this fluorescent kingdom is entirely gloriously yours. The drop-off is the beginning of freedom. A parent pulls up to the entrance, names a time to be picked up, and drives away, and just like that you're unsupervised in a vast indoor world with a little money and a lot of hours. This is as free as a teenager gets, and everyone knows it, which is why the mall on a weekend is teeming with them, packs of kids drifting through the concourses with no particular destination and all the time in the world. Because the point is not really to shop. The point is to be there, to walk the loop, to see who else is out and to be seen by them. You circle the same floors, past the same storefronts again and again, and every lap holds the possibility of running into someone, a friend, a crush, a rival, anyone. The mall is a stage, and everyone strolling through it is both performer and audience, dressed in their best, hoping the right person notices. There are landmarks that anchor the whole experience. The fountain in the centre, its bottom carpeted with coins tossed in on wishes, a natural meeting point and gathering spot. The clothing store aimed straight at teenagers, so dark inside it takes a moment for your eyes to adjust. The music thumping so loud you can hear it 3 stores away. The smell of its signature cologne rolling out the doors like fog. The bookstore, the music store, the shop selling posters and novelty gifts, each one a stop on the endless circuit. And at the heart of it all sits the food court, the true parliament of the mall. This is where everyone converges, the great open hall ringed by fast food counters, filled with tables where groups of teenagers hold court for hours over a single order of fries. You buy a slice of pizza, or a giant soft pretzel dripping with cheese, or a smoothie so enormous it's practically a meal, and you claim a table, and you stay. This is where plans get made, where gossip gets traded, where couples form and break up, all under the buzz of the food court lights. You might actually buy something, eventually. A cassette or disc, a shirt, a slice of something from a novelty shop. But the purchases are almost beside the point. Souvenirs of an afternoon whose real product was the time itself, the hours spent roaming free among your own kind. The mall is where you learn to be social, to be independent, to be a person out in the world without an adult narrating your every move. And then the pickup time arrives, and you drift back to the entrance to wait for your ride, tired and happy, already planning your next visit. The mall gave you freedom, but it also emptied your pockets in one very specific and predictable way, because every trip meant coming home with the latest thing, the object everyone suddenly had to own, the obsession of the month. Every few months, the 90s hand teenagers a brand new obsession that makes absolutely no sense and takes over completely. One week, it's a plastic band that slaps around your wrist and gets promptly banned by your school for being a menace. The next, it's little cardboard discs you win, lose and hoard like a tiny gambling addiction. Then it's a rubber toy, a shiny trading card, a keychain that beeps at you. You spend your allowance, you trade with a fervour that would impress a stockbroker, and you're utterly convinced this one is different. It's not. Next month there will be a new one, and this one will live in a shoebox in your closet forever. The fad arrives the way weather does, sudden and total. One day nobody has heard of the thing, and the next day everybody has it, and you're the only person left without one, which is a social emergency of the highest order. You don't remember deciding you needed it. You simply woke up one morning aware, deep in your bones, that your life would be incomplete until you possessed this specific object, and so did every other kid in your grade, all at exactly the same time. Some of them barely qualified as toys. There was the flat metal strip covered in colourful fabric that you smacked against your wrist so it curled around your arm, wildly popular, and just dangerous enough that schools started confiscating them, which naturally made them even more desirable. There were the little cardboard discs you collected, flipped, and won or lost in a schoolyard game that was, if you looked at it too closely, essentially gambling for elementary schoolers, complete with the heartbreak of losing your best pieces to a kid with a better throwing hand. There were the collectible cards, whole economies built around them, kids hunched over binders of protective plastic sleeves, trading and haggling and guarding their rarest finds like treasure. There were the stretchy, sticky toys, the yo-yos that made a comeback with fancy new tricks, the little rubber creatures, the keychains that beeped and blinked. Each one had its moment of absolute dominance, and during that moment it was all anyone talked about, the sole subject of every recess and every bus ride. The trading was serious business, conducted with the intensity that would put professional negotiators to shame. Everyone knew which items were rare and which were common. Deals were proposed, refused, sweetened, and sealed. Alliances formed, rivalries developed. Somebody always got taken advantage of, trading away something valuable in a moment of weakness for something they'd regret by the time they got home, learning the hard way that a fad's value is real right up until the second it isn't. And that's the thing about fads. They die. Completely, suddenly, and without warning. The object that consumed your every waking thought, that you spent your entire allowance on, that felt as permanent and important as anything in your life, simply stops mattering one day. The trend moves on. A new obsession arrives to take its place, and the old one gets swept into a drawer, a box, the bottom of a closet, where it sits gathering dust as a small monument to how completely you once cared. You spend the money anyway. You always spend the money on this fad and the next one and the one after that, because being part of it is worth more than the object itself. But some fads ask for more than your money. One of them asks for your time, your attention, and your genuine emotional care, because it wasn't just a toy, it was allegedly alive, and it was hanging from your keychain demanding to be fed. Speaking of fads, let's talk about the tiny plastic egg dangling from your backpack that has completely hijacked your emotional life, your virtual pet. It's a pixelated blob on a screen the size of a postage stamp, and it needs you constantly. Feed it, clean up after it, play with it, or it grows sad and, horrifyingly, it can actually die. You smuggle it into class and check on it under the desk, because even a few hours of neglect can prove fatal. Teachers confiscate them by the drawful, sentencing your digital child to slow starvation in a desk. You have never in your life worked this hard to keep anything alive, and it isn't even real. The whole thing is smaller than a plastic egg, a little pod with a screen and 3 tiny buttons, and it hangs from your keychain or your backpack zipper where you can get to it fast. On that screen lives a creature made of a handful of black pixels, and it hatched into your care one day, and from that moment on it became your responsibility, your dependent, your extremely demanding tiny companion. And it demands a lot. It beeps. It beeps when it's hungry. It beeps when it's bored. It beeps when it has. And there's no delicate way to say this. Made a mess that you now have to clean up by pressing a button. You cycle through the little icons, feeding it, playing a simple guessing game with it to keep its spirits up, tending to its every pixelated need. Ignore the beeping for too long and the creature grows sad, then sick, and then, in a development that genuinely devastated a generation of children, it can die, right there on your keychain, leaving behind a little pixelated ghost and a hole in your heart. This creates a problem, because you cannot tend to it around the clock. and the hours you're least available happen to be the hours you're required by law to sit in a classroom, so you smuggle it in. You keep it in your pocket or your desk, and when it beeps that muffled little cry for help, you have to decide whether to risk it. You sneak a hand down, you press the buttons by feel, you keep one eye on the teacher, performing surgery on your digital child's mood while pretending to take notes. Teachers, of course, caught on immediately, and they declared war. The beeping gave you away every time, and a confiscated virtual pet was a special kind of agony, because it didn't just sit in the drawer waiting for you at the end of the day. It kept living in there, kept getting hungry, kept beeping into the darkness of a teacher's desk. And by the time you got it back at the final bell, your poor creature had gone hours without care and was often on death's door, or worse, already gone. Teachers were, in effect, sentencing your pet to death, and they did it without mercy. You learned responsibility the hard way, through the anxiety of keeping a needy little machine happy, through the guilt of a neglected beep, through the grief of a pet you failed to save. It was absurd. It was a keychain toy, and you cared about it more than you would ever admit out loud, checking it first thing in the morning, relieved every day it was still alive. Your virtual pet kept you tethered to a beeping device that made you feel needed. But there was another beeping device clipped to a 90s waistband, one that didn't need you at all, one that made you feel like the most important and connected person in the entire world, even though it did almost nothing. Let's talk status, because clipped to your waistband might be the single coolest object a teenager can own. A pager. It doesn't do much of anything. It buzzes and shows you a phone number, and that is the entire feature set. But it means that someone, somewhere, wants to reach you, and that alone makes you important. You've memorized a whole secret language of numbers that spell out little messages when you squint at them upside down, a code shared only with your friends. When it goes off, you then have to go find a phone, an actual phone, to call the number back. It's the most inconvenient possible way to feel popular, and you wouldn't trade it for anything. For most of the decade, the pager belonged to doctors and important business people, which is exactly why a teenager wearing one felt like such a statement. To have a beeper clipped to your belt was to announce to the world that you had places to be and people trying to reach you, that your presence was in demand, that you were, in some vague and thrilling way, a person of consequence. It didn't matter that this was almost entirely an illusion. The illusion was the whole point. The device itself is small and simple, a little screen and not much else. When someone wants to reach you, they call your pager's number, and then, at the prompt, they punch in the number where you can call them back. A moment later, your beeper buzzes against your hip. You glance down, and there it is. A phone number, glowing on the little display, a summons from the outside world. Your heart does a small leap every time because someone thought of you. But a pager only sends numbers, and teenagers, being clever and bored, turn that limitation into an entire secret language. By choosing numbers that resembled letters, or that looked like words when you flipped the screen upside down, you could send actual messages, coded strings of digits that meant hello, or I miss you, or call me right now, understood only by those who knew the code. You and your friends built up a whole vocabulary of these, a private numeric slang, and receiving a string of seemingly random numbers that you alone could decode felt like being part of a secret club. The catch, the great absurd catch, is that the pager could only receive. It couldn't reply. It couldn't call. All it could do was tell you that someone wanted to talk and give you a number, which meant that every single page sent you on a quest to find a telephone. If you were home, fine. But if you were out, you were suddenly scanning the area for a payphone, digging through your pockets for change, feeding coins into the slot to return a call to a number you didn't recognise, hoping it wasn't just a friend paging you a joke in code. It was, by any rational measure, a deeply inconvenient way to communicate, a device that created work rather than saving it, that made you chase down phones all over town just to find out what someone wanted, and yet you loved it. Because it wasn't really about communication at all. It was about the buzz against your hip, the little proof, several times a day, that you existed in someone else's thoughts. The pager told you that a moment mattered enough for someone to reach out, and when a moment mattered that much, you wanted to hold on to it, to capture it, to keep it forever. For that, you needed a different device entirely, a cheap little cardboard box that took a picture and then made you wait an agonisingly long time to find out if it was any good. You want to remember tonight, so you pull out a chunky little cardboard camera with exactly 27 shots and no way whatsoever of knowing if a single one is any good. You wind the tiny gear forward with your thumb, you fire off a flash that blinds everyone in the room, and you simply pray. There's no screen, no delete button, no do-over. When the roll is finally full, you drop it off at a counter and wait a full week to learn that half your photos are of someone's thumb, several are pure darkness, and 2 of them are genuinely, unexpectedly great. Photography in the 90s is an act of blind faith, and the reveal is either a triumph or a quiet tragedy. The camera is barely more than a cardboard box with a lens, bought cheap at the drugstore, and it holds a single roll of film with a fixed number of shots, and once those shots are gone, the whole camera is done. This scarcity changes everything about how you take pictures. Every shot counts because you only have so many, so you don't fire away carelessly. You think, you compose. You decide whether this moment is truly worth using up one of your precious remaining frames, a discipline that has vanished entirely from a world of unlimited photos. Winding it is part of the ritual, that little plastic wheel you thumb forward after every shot, feeling it click and catch, advancing the film to the next frame, a small mechanical satisfaction. The flash, if the camera has one, needs a moment to charge, a faint high whine building, until the little light says it's ready, and then it fires with a burst so bright it leaves everyone blinking and seeing spots, guaranteeing that half your subjects have their eyes closed. And here's the cruel heart of it. You have no idea what you got. There is no screen on the back to check. You can't see the photo you just took, can't tell if it was blurry, if someone blinked, if your thumb was over the lens, if the whole thing came out too dark to make out anything at all. You just take the shot and trust and move on, carrying a roll of complete mysteries around with you until the camera is used up. Then comes the waiting, which is its own special agony. You take the finished camera or roll to a counter at the drugstore or a dedicated photo shop, hand it over, and they send it away to be developed, and you go home empty-handed. Days pass, sometimes a whole week. The photos exist, but you can't see them. They're off somewhere in a lab being turned from invisible chemistry into actual pictures, and all you can do is wait and wonder how they turned out. The reveal is a genuine event. You pick up the envelope thick with prints, and you tear it open right there in the store because you cannot possibly wait until you get home. And you flip through them one by one, and it's a roller coaster, a great one, then a blurry disaster, then one that's just a wall, then someone's thumb, then 2 people mid-blink, then, occasionally, a photo so perfect and lucky that it becomes a treasure precisely because you had no idea it was coming. The duds outnumber the winners, and you pay to develop every single one, thumbs and darkness included. Those developed photos, flawed and precious, become the physical record of your teenage years stuffed into shoeboxes and albums. but capturing memories was the fun kind of work. There was another kind of work waiting for you at home, the kind with a deadline and a grade attached, and doing it in the 90s meant no search bar could save you. You've got a report due, and there's no search bar on earth that can save you. Instead, you haul out the family encyclopedia, a heavy set of books your parents bought from a travelling salesman and are still enormously proud of, even though the information inside it stops being current somewhere before you were born. For anything serious, you go to the library, decode a mysterious card system, and photocopy pages for a dime each. You write the whole thing out by hand, or if you're feeling fancy, you type it on a machine that punishes every single mistake. Citing your sources means real sources, made of paper that you had to physically walk over and find. The encyclopedia is the first line of defence, a whole shelf of matching volumes, one for each letter or so, bound in imitation leather and taking up a place of honour in the living room. Your parents bought the set at considerable expense, probably in instalments, and they regard it as a monument to the family's commitment to learning. You pull the correct volume, heavy as a brick, and look up your topic, and you get a few solid paragraphs of information, assuming your topic existed and hadn't changed since the set was printed, which for anything recent it very much had. For a real assignment though, the encyclopedia isn't enough, and that means a trip to the library, a temple of silence and card catalogues. To find a book, you consult the card catalogue, a vast cabinet of tiny drawers packed with index cards, each one describing a book and telling you through a mysterious numbering system exactly where on the shelves to find it. You learn to navigate this system, decode the numbers, and track your book down through the stacks. A small treasure hunt that ends, often as not, with the discovery that the one book you needed is already checked out. When you find a useful page you can't take home, you photocopy it, feeding dimes into a machine that spits out slightly crooked, slightly grey reproductions, the fee adding up fast if your report needs more than a few pages. You gather your photocopies and your notes, handwritten on index cards or notebook paper, and you haul it all home to begin the actual writing. And the writing is a physical act with real consequences for every mistake. If you're writing by hand, an error means crossing it out or starting the page over, and a report full of scratched out words looks sloppy and costs you. If you've graduated to a typewriter, the stakes are even higher, because a typo means either painting over it with correction fluid and waiting for it to dry, or ripping the whole page out and starting again from the top. There's no cursor to click back to, no delete key that fixes anything cleanly. Every keystroke is permanent the instant the little hammer strikes the page. Citing your sources means citing real, physical things. The actual books and encyclopedia volumes you actually held, copied out carefully into a bibliography by hand. There's no copying and pasting a link, no automatic formatting. You do it all yourself, from objects made of paper that you personally located and read. It's slow, it's laborious, and it teaches a kind of patience that would astonish a later generation. A report that might someday take an hour takes you an entire weekend, hunched over books and a typewriter, and when it's finally done, it's genuinely yours, built by hand from the ground up. Homework tested your patience, but there was another kind of assignment that tested your courage, one with no encyclopedia entry and no clear instructions, the most terrifying and thrilling challenge of teenage life, telling someone you liked them. Let's talk about romance, which, at your age, is equal parts thrilling and completely mortifying. You can't just message someone. You have to commit genuine acts of bravery. You recruit a friend to ask their friend whether they like you, a delicate diplomatic mission with more layers than an actual peace treaty. Or you pass a folded note with 2 little boxes, yes and no, and hand your whole fragile heart to someone holding a pencil. A slow dance at a school function demands an arm's length of respectful distance and a chaperone patrolling with a ruler and a mission. Every interaction is agony. Every passing glance gets analysed for days, and somehow this is the most exciting your life has ever been. There's no easy way to do any of this, and that's what makes it so excruciating. You can't send a quiet message from the safety of your bedroom. You can't test the waters from a distance. Every step toward a crush is a public risk, taken in person or through a chain of intermediaries, with the very real possibility of humiliation waiting at every turn. To like someone is to be vulnerable in a way that requires real nerve. So you build systems to manage the terror. The most trusted is the intermediary, the friend who acts as your ambassador. You tell your friend in strict confidence who you like. Your friend then approaches that person's friend and asks on your behalf whether the feeling might be mutual. The message travels through this chain of go-betweens, getting slightly garbled at each step, and eventually an answer comes back the same way, filtered through 2 or 3 people, so that by the time you learn your fate, you're not entirely sure what was actually said. It's diplomacy conducted entirely through nervous middle schoolers. Then there's the direct approach, which takes a different kind of courage. The note. You write it plainly. Do you like me? And beneath the question, you draw 2 small boxes, one labelled yes and one labelled no, and you fold it up and get it delivered. And then you wait in agony for it to come back, because the recipient will check a box, one box, and hand your entire emotional future back to you in a folded scrap of paper. Occasionally, cruelly, a third option gets added in the margin, a maybe, which is somehow worse than either answer. Public interaction with a crush is its own minefield. A shared glance across the classroom gets replayed in your mind for days. An accidental brush in the hallway becomes a major event. You and your friends dissect every tiny moment for hidden meaning, building entire theories on the foundation of a single smile, because you have no direct line of communication, and so you're left to interpret every scrap of evidence like a detective working a very low-stakes case. And then there are the school dances, the arena where all this tension finally has somewhere to go. The lights are low, the music is loud, and eventually a slow song comes on, and the whole room reorganises itself into couples swaying at a careful, formal distance. A good gap of respectable space between them, monitored closely by teacher chaperones whose entire job for the evening is to make sure that gap does not close. To ask someone to dance is a monumental act of bravery, and to be asked is a thrill you'll remember for years. It's all so slow, so indirect, so agonizingly complicated, and yet nothing in your life has ever felt this electric. But there was one thing on the horizon that promised even more freedom, even more possibility. A single milestone that would change your entire social world overnight and put the open road at your feet. There is one milestone that changes absolutely everything. One rite of passage that transforms you from a kid begging for rides into a free citizen of the open road. Your driver's license. You study a little booklet, you sweat through a test, and suddenly you're handed the keys to a car that is almost certainly a hand-me-down held together by rust and optimism. It has a tape deck, air conditioning that hasn't worked since the last decade, and a passenger seat your friends will fight over. Gas is cheap, the windows roll down by hand, and the entire point of driving is often to drive with no destination in mind at all. Freedom, it turns out, smells like a little pine tree hanging from the mirror. The road to the license is paved with study, a slim booklet from the motor vehicle office that you actually read, memorising rules and signs and the meaning of every painted line, because there's a written test standing between you and freedom, and you cannot fail it. Then comes the driving test itself, an ordeal conducted with a stern examiner in the passenger seat holding a clipboard, judging your every turn and stop, and the parallel parking portion alone has crushed the dreams of many a teenager who could drive perfectly fine right up until they had to fit a car between two cones. But then you pass, and they hand you a license with a photo you'll hate for years, and the world cracks wide open. The car you get to drive is rarely anything glamorous. It's a hand-me-down, a family cast-off, an old sedan with faded paint and a few 100,000 miles on it, held together by rust, duct tape and sheer stubbornness. The check engine light glows permanently, treated as decoration. One window sticks, a door only opens from the inside, but it runs mostly, and it's yours to drive, and that's all that matters. The car has a tape deck, which means your carefully made mixtapes finally have their true purpose, providing the soundtrack to every drive. The air conditioning either doesn't exist or gave up years ago, so you cool the car the old-fashioned way, cranking the windows down by hand with a little rotating handle, letting the wind roar through as you drive. There's a pine tree air freshener swinging from the mirror, doing its valiant best against the car's permanent smell of old upholstery and fast food. The passenger seat becomes prime real estate, and your friends genuinely compete for it, because riding shotgun is a position of honour next to the driver, in charge of the music and the maps and the general vibe. The back seat fills up with whoever's left, everyone crammed in, and suddenly a group of teenagers can go somewhere, anywhere, without asking a parent to drive them, and that independence is intoxicating, and gas is cheap, blessedly cheap, so cheap you can scrape together a few dollars and fill up enough to drive for hours, which is exactly what you do. Because the destination is often beside the point. The driving itself is the activity. You pick up your friends and you just go cruising with no particular plan, music up, windows down, the whole evening ahead of you, and the freedom of the road finally, thrillingly yours. The car gave you the power to go anywhere, but some of the best nights of your teenage life didn't require going far at all. Sometimes they happened in a single house, when a friend's parents agreed to host a gathering that would test the limits of human endurance and the patience of everyone trying to sleep down the hall. Tonight you're staying at a friend's house, and a sleepover is less about sleeping and more a scientific experiment in how long human beings can stay awake on pure sugar and bad decisions. You watch a scary movie you're definitely too young for, prank call a random number from the phone book, and hang up giggling, and dare each other to play a game meant to summon a spirit in the bathroom mirror that terrifies the entire group. Someone's parent yells down the hall for the third time to keep it down. You swear on your life you'll stay up until sunrise and then collapse at 3 in the morning in a heap of sleeping bags and empty chip bags. Whoever falls asleep first faces the consequences, which usually involve a marker. The whole thing begins with an arrival, sleeping bag under one arm, a pillow under the other, a bag of essentials for a night that everyone secretly hopes will be legendary. You claim your spot on the floor of the living room or a bedroom, and the mood is instantly electric. That specific giddy energy of being with your friends with a whole night of no supervision stretching ahead, no bedtime that anyone actually intends to honour. The fuel is junk food, mountains of it, chips and candy and soda spread across the floor, a spread with no nutritional value and no parental oversight, and you graze on it steadily for hours, powering the whole enterprise on sugar and caffeine. The television glows, and eventually someone puts on a scary movie, something a little too intense for your age, and you all watch it together in the dark, screaming at the jump scares and then laughing at yourselves for screaming, thoroughly spooked and loving it. Then come the games and the dares, the true content of a sleepover. There's the prank phone call, made in the era before caller identification, when you could dial a random number or a classmate or a local business, ask something ridiculous, and hang up in a fit of giggles with absolutely no way for anyone to trace it back to you. There's the dare to go into the dark bathroom, stand before the mirror and chant the name of a ghost said to appear if you summon her, a challenge that sends the bravest kid in first and reduces everyone to a huddle of nervous terror. There's the whispered conversation deep into the night, secrets shared in the dark that feel enormously important. The kind of talks that only happen at that specific hour when everyone's exhausted and honest. And underlying it all is the great competition of the sleepover, the unspoken contest to not be the first one to fall asleep. Because falling asleep first at a sleepover carries consequences, and everyone knows them. The marker drawn on your face, your hand dipped in warm water, some prank waiting for whoever surrenders to sleep first. You all swear you'll make it to sunrise, and you all mean it, and one by one you lose the battle anyway, dropping off mid-sentence, until the last kid standing surveys a room full of sleeping friends and either goes to bed victorious or gets to work with the marker. Somewhere in the house, a tired parent who yelled down the hall to keep it down at least 3 times has finally gotten their wish. Sleepovers were free, powered by nothing but junk food and imagination. But a lot of what a teenager wanted cost money, real money, more than any allowance could cover, and getting it meant taking on something that felt like a genuine step into adulthood. A job. You want money, and money means a job, because your allowance is a joke and your wants are frankly expensive. Maybe you bag groceries or flip burgers under a heat lamp or push carts across a parking lot in the summer sun. The pay is small, the uniform is worse, and your manager is a teenager barely older than you, absolutely drunk on a tiny sip of power. But that first paycheck, modest as it is, feels like a genuine fortune, and you learn the harsh economics of the era with breathtaking speed. A couple of albums, a movie ticket, and a bite to eat, and it has already vanished completely. Welcome to the working world part-time division. The jobs available to a teenager are a specific and humbling category of labour. You bag groceries at the supermarket, learning the delicate art of not putting the eggs on the bottom and the bread under the cans. You work the counter at a fast food place, standing under heat lamps in a paper hat, assembling burgers at speed while the fryer beeps and the line grows. You push shopping carts across a vast hot parking lot, wrangling long, clattering trains of them back to the store. You scoop ice cream until your wrist aches, or you fold shirts at a mall store, or you deliver newspapers before dawn. The uniform is almost always an indignity. A polo in an unflattering colour with a company logo, a visor or a paper hat, an apron stained with the residue of the job. You wear it in public, where your classmates might see you, and you make your peace with being seen at your least cool, name tag and all, doing something distinctly unglamorous for money. The management structure holds a special kind of lesson. Very often the person in charge of you, your shift supervisor, is barely older than you are, a slightly senior teenager who's been handed a scrap of authority and wears it like a crown. They take the schedule seriously. They take the rules seriously. They take themselves extremely seriously, and you learn to navigate their small power trips with a patience that will serve you well for the rest of your working life, because there will always be another one of them, at every job forever. But then comes payday, and the first paycheck erases every complaint. It's not much, a modest sum for hours of unglamorous labour, but it's yours, earned, and holding it feels like holding a fortune. You have money now, real money, money you didn't have to ask a parent for, money that comes with no strings and no lecture, and the freedom of that is genuinely thrilling. The thrill lasts about as long as it takes to spend it, which is where the harsh economics kick in. You quickly discover how far your paycheck actually goes in the real world, which is nowhere. A couple of albums from the record store, a movie ticket, a bite to eat with friends afterward, and the fortune has simply evaporated, and you're broke again, already counting the shifts until the next check. It's a hard, clarifying lesson in the value of $1. Learn the way everyone learns it, by watching your own hard-earned money disappear with astonishing speed. Still, you keep at it, because the money means freedom, and freedom is everything at your age. But as the decade wound toward its end, a strange new worry started creeping into the background of everyone's plans, a shadow looming over the whole future, and it had a name that sounded like a secret code. As the decade winds toward its close, a strange new worry creeps into every conversation. Something the grown-ups keep calling the Y2K bug. The story goes that when the calendar flips over to the year 2000, every computer on Earth will get hopelessly confused, and modern civilization might just quietly switch itself off. Adults begin stockpiling canned goods and bottled water. The news runs breathless late-night specials. You genuinely can't decide whether to be terrified or thrilled at the idea of a world with no more homework. Everyone counts down to midnight with one eye on the party and one eye on the light switch, waiting to see whether the future arrives gracefully or simply crashes. The problem, as best anyone can explain it, is almost charmingly simple. For decades, computers were built to save precious space by recording the year using only its last two digits, so 1999 was stored simply as 99. Which was fine, right up until the calendar was about to roll over, at which point the machines would read the new year, 2000, as 00, and potentially conclude that it was suddenly the year 1900 again, and nobody could say for certain what a confused computer might do with that. And so the theories bloom, each more dramatic than the last. Maybe the banks will lose track of everyone's money. Maybe the power grid will fail. Maybe planes will fall from the sky. Maybe the water will stop. Maybe every system that quietly runs the modern world will seize up at the same instant and drag civilization back to the Dark Ages. The experts argue, the news amplifies, and a low hum of genuine dread settles over the final months of the decade. The adults respond by preparing for the end of the world, or at least a serious inconvenience. People stockpile, filling basements and closets with canned food and jugs of water, batteries and flashlights and cash withdrawn from banks they no longer fully trust. Some buy generators. Some make actual plans to be somewhere safe when the clock strikes. The whole thing has the strange energy of a slow-motion emergency, a disaster everyone can see coming on a specific date, marked clearly on the calendar. You, as a teenager, don't quite know how to feel about it, and honestly the possibilities cut both ways. On one hand, the collapse of civilization sounds genuinely frightening. On the other hand, a world where all the computers stopped working is a world with no records, no school databases, possibly no school at all, and some small, mischievous part of you can't help but find the idea of the entire system crashing just a little bit thrilling. No more homework, in the most dramatic way imaginable. And so it all builds toward one single moment, the stroke of midnight on New Year's Eve, the turn of the century, watched by more of the world at once than perhaps any moment before it. Everyone gathers for the countdown with a strange double focus, one eye on the celebration and the champagne and the ball dropping, and one eye warily on the lights, half expecting them to flicker and die the instant the year changes, waiting to see whether the future would arrive with a party or with a blackout. The countdown to the year 2000 was a shared held breath, a whole generation waiting together to see what would happen. But most nights in the 90s held no such drama. No looming apocalypse, just the simple, ordinary magic of a weekend evening with your friends, and those ordinary nights turned out to be the ones you'd remember most. The week is finally over, and a weekend night in the 90s has a rhythm all its own. Plans get made through a chaotic web of phone calls, since no one can just text where they are or when they'll show up. You end up cruising, driving in slow, aimless loops around town with your friends, music up, windows down, going absolutely nowhere with total commitment. You gather in parking lots, at the diner, at whoever's house has the least strict parents. There's a payphone on the corner for emergencies and a pocket full of quarters ready to feed it. Nothing much ever really happens, and yet somehow these are the exact nights you'll still be talking about for the rest of your life. Making plans is its own small ordeal, conducted entirely by voice over the wall phone. A chaotic relay of calls. You call one friend who's heard something might be happening at someone's place, so you call that someone whose line is busy because they were on the phone with a third friend, and around it goes, a web of calls and busy signals and messages left with siblings, until somehow, imperfectly, a loose plan takes shape, and a place and a time emerge from the confusion. There's no group message to coordinate it all. There's just the phone and persistence and a bit of luck. Once you're all out, the main event is often the cruise, and the beauty of the cruise is that it goes nowhere on purpose. You pile into someone's car, the mixtape goes in the deck, the windows come down, and you drive in slow loops around the same familiar stretch of town, the same main road, the same lap past the same places, again and again. You're not trying to get anywhere. The driving is the destination, the motion and the music and the company all that you need. The whole town a backdrop for the simple pleasure of being young and mobile and free on a Friday night. You have your gathering spots, the places everyone drifts toward. The parking lot of a store or a fast food place where cars cluster and everyone gets out to talk and lean against fenders under the buzzing lot lights. The diner that stays open late, where you nurse endless refills and split a plate of fries and take up a booth for hours. The house of whoever has the most relaxed parents, the reliable headquarters where a group can just be, sprawled across a living room or a backyard doing nothing in particular together. And because you're out in the world without a phone in your pocket, the payphone on the corner is your lifeline. You keep quarters ready for it, to call home and check in, to call a friend who never showed and find out where they are, to change plans on the fly. If someone's running late or lost, all you can do is wait, or find a phone, because there's no way to reach a person who isn't near one. You make plans and then you commit to them and you trust they'll hold, because there's no adjusting them in real time. And here's the strange, wonderful truth of those nights. Nothing much ever happens on them. You drive around, you eat some fries, you talk for hours about nothing. You lean on a car in a parking lot and laugh until it hurts. No grand events, no memorable milestones, Just ordinary hours spent with your friends in the simple freedom of a weekend night. And yet those are the nights that lodge themselves deepest, the ones you'll find yourself describing decades later, trying to explain to someone how the emptiest evenings somehow turned out to be the fullest. Because that, in the end, is what it was really like. A whole world of small inconveniences and slow machines and endless waiting. And somehow, underneath all of it, a kind of freedom and a kind of magic you didn't even know you had until it was long gone. So there you have it, a single, ordinary trip through what it really meant to be a teenager in the 1990s. You waited for the phone, you waited for the tape to rewind, for the photos to develop, for the modem to stop screaming, for the one video you loved to come around again. You memorized phone numbers by heart, folded notes into tiny paper vaults, and poured your whole soul into a mixtape you'd never dare explain out loud. Nothing was instant. Everything took a little effort, a little patience, a little faith that it would all work out in the end. And somehow, it did. Because the people who lived those years, maybe you among them, learned something quietly remarkable in all that waiting. How to be bored and turn it into an adventure. How to make a plan and simply trust it would hold. How to sit close to your friends with nowhere to be and let an empty evening become one of the best nights of your life. That patience, that willingness to wait for the good things, was its own kind of magic, even if no one recognized it at the time. So tonight, as you lie in a world where every song, every photo, every friend is a single tap away, maybe spare a warm thought for that slower, clumsier, wonderfully patient decade. Be grateful for the instant everything you have now, but be a little grateful too for a time when the waiting was part of the joy, when the machines were slow and the nights were long and the whole future was still spooling out ahead of you like a fresh, unrecorded tape. Rest easy now, the tape has reached its end, and there's nothing left to do but drift gently off to sleep.